So now we have our other guest, Greg Hill, who's the president of Free to Fly, an aviation rights and freedoms organization. So, Greg, our previous guest was talking about some of the mess that was happening at Pearson Airport, and he had mentioned that labor shortages was predominantly the main issue, but we also discussed other issues such as mismanagement, perhaps from leadership, and also the regulations that were provided by the government and the loosening of the restrictions. I want to hear your take on this.
Sure. Well, it's as you've pointed out, a lot of it's the labor issues, but it's multitudinous, I guess. Not sure that's even a word, but if we go back even pre-COVID, I would speak with many of my colleagues, and I'm sure they would share the same thing with you, that aviation in general is, I'll say, one snowstorm or thunderstorm away from close to chaos. If you look in years past, when a major blizzard rolls through Pearson, for instance, it's a good 24 hours for that to recover. And now you've got an industry that's not different than if you or I were to sit on a couch and eat Cheetos for the better part of a year and then be asked to run a 20K. It's not going to go well. And so you've got an industry and these airports from an infrastructure standpoint that have been very light in terms of what's been demanded of them. And then in a very rapid period, they've been demanded to get back to full speed, and it's not going well. The industry also counts regularly on the goodwill of employees to jump in and cover off shortages with overtime. And I'd suggest that given what's happened over this past 6 months to a year, many of those employees are no longer willing to jump in and cover things off with overtime. You've got boomer retirements that have kicked in and the hiring issues that you've already spoken of. And then on top of that, you've got those who are out of work due to mandates. You've got sickness and everything else that's piled on top of that. So it is a multitude of events that are all transpiring at the same time. And then from a transborder standpoint, you throw in the ArriveCan app, and I'm sure you've heard plenty about that. That's also grinding things down. The customs haul at these airports is regularly, even pre-COVID, we had what were called gate holds, where we'd hold passengers because the capacity just wasn't there. Now, when you're taking multiple times more to process each individual person that needs to go through customs, it's chaos.
It becomes daunting. Essentially, it becomes daunting. And what you're saying is that the infrastructure just isn't there. And it's not because it wasn't there to begin with. It's just that when you have a pandemic and things are shut down, the infrastructure that was there, it can't pick itself back up that quickly. And like we said, a multitude of things, but predominantly labor.
Yeah, and I've pointed out in the past as well, when you've got people that are out of work, I'm one example, and many of my colleagues as well. These are people who are experienced, and you cannot replace experience with a number. So if, let's say, you're missing 100 people from a certain baggage crew, it takes time and it takes experience to do the job quickly and efficiently. And when it's constantly new hires that are being thrown into it, the efficiency drops dramatically. And it's not the only thing that drops. Safety drops as well. And it's not just the airports. If you look at NAV Canada, who handles air traffic controllers in the country, those folks are doing overtime that's pushing the limits of their license right now. They have had to close down entire sectors of airspace within the past few weeks because they simply can't man them. So it's not just the airports, and that affects the traffic flow as well, and not just what's happening in the airport.
Okay, so then, but what can travelers do then? How do they cope? I mean, when they see a sale and they can go buy tickets, and Christmas is coming, they want to go and they want to plan their family vacation. I mean, is there anything they can do? Is there anything your association can do? I mean, how do people plan? Because if you see that it's available, the ticket, you presume that you will get on instead of expecting and going there and then they're saying your flight is canceled and it can be canceled for 2 days. I mean, there's clearly a problem here, and it's just not labor shortages. It's also the selling of tickets.
Well, we've been very vocal in pushing back against Transport Canada for a number of reasons. One of those is the ArriveCan app, and it's going to perhaps not be what people want to hear, but advocacy matters. Speaking up when things aren't going well does matter. Simply complaining amongst ourselves isn't going to change things. We need to push back against government. We need to push back against, as you've pointed out, against these airlines, against the airport authorities and otherwise. Using ArriveCan as a simple example, why something that hasn't been working well over the past 6 to 9 months, now you've got the government saying, well, ArriveCan may have been brought about just to help us cope with COVID, but we're also going to push it into broader society and help it to manage our borders. And you're sitting there scratching your head thinking, it's ground things to a halt on the trans-border end, and now you're suggesting that you want to expand its use. And the only way to get back against that is for people to push back against it, right? Whether that's by contacting
your organization or notifying their local representative. And with that point, we'll be right back.